Full Metal Jack is back in a Denver Broncos uniform in 2022. The return of Kareem Jackson is huge for this Broncos team. Why is this an A-plus move from general manager George Paton? What will the safety rotation look like in 2022? Plus, George Paton is showing that he is going all in on championship mode right now. You get all that and much more in today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos country? Welcome back into a brand new episode of Locked On Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked On NFL Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside by my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. Both of us, we cover the Denver Broncos for the Locked On Network and 9 News. Broncos country, thank you so much for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. Both Sayre Bedinger and myself, we're super appreciative of you taking time out of your day to listen to us on your favorite audio podcasting platform, free and available everywhere you get your podcasts, and also watching us here on YouTube in 4K high definition. Thank you so much. And obviously, Broncos country, happy Friday. We get to wake up this morning with some good news with your morning cup of coffee. The Broncos are bringing back Kareem Jackson on a one-year deal, as it was announced yesterday. This is huge for the Broncos. And, you know, I tell you what, Sayre, generally excited about the direction where things are headed right now. This is a great move. A-plus, in my opinion. We'll talk about why.
Absolutely, Cody. I even wrote it on the whiteboard here. K-Jack is back, A+. Very exciting. You know, there was a time earlier in the offseason where I was kind of on record as saying, look, if the Broncos aren't excited about bringing Kareem Jackson back, let's move along. Let's see what else they could do. But, man, the longer time went on, the more it just felt like that maybe it's the best option for them to bring him back. The safety market kind of dwindled down, and here Kareem Jackson is. And we talked about this on yesterday's show, didn't we, about both Bryce Callahan and Kareem Jackson. If Justin Simmons, the starting safety, the number one safety in the NFL, is campaigning for Bryce Callahan, what might he be saying about Kareem Jackson to George Paton, the Broncos general manager? So it's exciting to have Kareem Jackson back, and I think this move really just solidifies, look, the Broncos needed some depth at that safety position. Caden Sterns, Jamar Johnson, and even new acquisition J.R. Reed. You know, we're excited to have those guys. But, man, I just feel like having Kareem Jackson in the fold really just kind of – you say this all the time, Cody, but the chef's kiss for the safety position, I feel like it's on point.
No, spot on there. And, you know, I think we need to look at why this is an A-plus move here for George Paton and this Denver Broncos team. Well, first off, I think it addresses safety depth, which was kind of needed. I think everyone was looking into one of our latest mock drafts and was saying, hey, how come you didn't take a safety? Well, you know, here's the deal. I think how we envision things for the Broncos is we kind of left it up to chance, like, hey, there's still a chance Kareem Jackson could return. And now that is the reality here. But also, I think this is huge for the Broncos here because they are bringing back one of the key voices in that locker room from the defensive side of the ball and in general. When Kareem Jackson speaks pregame, when he does a pregame speech, or if he has anything to say, you know what happens in that locker room? It's like the spider senses tingle. The ears of that locker room, they perk up a little bit, and everyone listens to what Kareem Jackson has to say. He's got so much love and respect in that locker room. K-Jack TV, obviously a very fun feature. He's very close with offensive guys, defensive guys, and he's a culture builder here. And look, for George Paton, 2 consecutive years in a row here, Sayre, to say, hey, look, you know what, coming into this, we see the value that Kareem brings to the table here. We understand that he's getting up there in age a little bit more, but his production has not dropped off just yet. And so now, I mean, 2 years in a row, signing a one-year deal to come back to the Denver Broncos, that is a great move on behalf of the Broncos. But also, I don't think Kareem Jackson wanted to go anywhere else. The Pittsburgh Steelers were rumored to be in the mix there for him, but I'm just glad he's back in a Broncos uniform. But, you know, outside of that, why is this another great move here for the Broncos and George Paton?
Well, I think, you know, Kareem Jackson, he's a tone setter for your defense, isn't he? I mean, he's the guy that will go out there and absolutely just stick it to people. And he did that last year. Juju Smith-Schuster now with the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, we talked about this before on our AFC West, discussion, that Juju Smith-Schuster probably hoping beyond all hope that Kareem Jackson didn't return to Denver. Now he's back, and man, Kareem Jackson, if he does nothing else well, I know he does this well. He will come up and make a game-altering hit in whether it's the run game, whether it's a quick pass to the outside. He is the guy that can come up and really just kind of inflict fear into opposing wide receivers. And I think that's what he's going to be doing this year. I don't know exactly what his role is going to be. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on in the show, but I mean, I can't wait to have him back as that tone setter in the defense and continue to show these young defensive backs. Look, I mean, sometimes you got to put your body on the line to make a big play, and he's been able to stay healthy more often than not doing that. So he may be lucky, but man, I think the Broncos are lucky to have him back.
Well, who works on our good friend Mario Vitanzi, who works on me and all the Broncos players,
Yeah.
has me well adjusted. Shout out to my man Mario Vitanzi, Omni Chiropractic if you're in Denver. Go see my man Mario. Tell him Cody Roark of Lockdown Broncos sent you. He'll take care of you. He does a great job there. But, getting into that point now, Sayre, like how might the Broncos use K-Jack this upcoming season? And what does that mean for the rotation? Well, Broncos country, Sayre, Bedinger, myself, we're going to dive into this coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, let me tell you about BetOnline.net, the sponsor of today's episode of the show. And BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your sports betting needs and information this upcoming season. And you can find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, and reviews for all the different leagues this season, like the UFC, NHL, NBA. They have you covered. And BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores today. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline.net. BetOnline, where the game starts. And Broncos country on this beautiful Friday, wherever you are at, we just want to say thank you so much for making Locked On Broncos your first listen of the day. Kareem Jackson is back in a Broncos uniform here in 2022. How might the Broncos use him this upcoming season? Will he still play the same role? How might that impact guys like Caden Sterns, PJ Locke, J.R. Reed, the guys that you've thrown out there too, Jamar Johnson? How might this impact the Broncos, especially with our thought process and how they want to evolve on the defensive side of the ball this year? That's a great question. So, Sayre, first off, I want to touch base on something our good friend Benjamin Albright had tweeted out, and he said, I'd bet that K-Jack is back on more of a chess piece role than a true high safety like Sterns and Simmons. So this is kind of alluding to the fact that Justin Simmons and Caden Sterns will be those two high safeties. And now in a nickel and a dime package, Kareem Jackson may just be that guy that plays inside the box. He could be that one of those nickel defenders. He could be a dime backer. And, you and I talked about this last year too. Remember the Caden Sterns game against the Baltimore Ravens? We're like, hey, this guy can play. What if he moves there and Kareem Jackson could come up and just play against the run and play in the box? Maybe they're getting creative in that sense, and maybe we might be able to see a lot more of that. But he also has played a lot as well. For him, he made the transition from corner to safety in Vic Fangio's defense, not necessarily by a product of, hey, he's getting older, we're going to move him to safety, but that was a need that the Broncos had at that point in time, and he really excelled at the safety position. So there was no need for the Broncos to really move him to corner, even though that they needed some cornerback help when some injuries had happened, because they felt like, okay, hey, if we move Kareem from safety to corner, now we're impacting our depth and our options at safety. Oh, hey, now Denver's got options here, Sayre.
And I love that. I absolutely love that. And just hearing you talk about that gets me excited about the possibility of somebody like Caden Sterns switching to Kareem Jackson's old position and Jackson kind of taking his place in that dime situation. How cool would it be to see Kareem Jackson blitzing the quarterback more often this season? How cool would it be to see him as the guy that matches up against tight ends? I think the possibilities are kind of endless here. We know that Kareem Jackson has an unlimited resume of positional versatility in that defensive backfield. So why not try him out in a couple of other spots? This move really raises the floor for your safety position. If Caden Sterns isn't playing well, then you can say, all right, we're going to flip Kareem Jackson back into that spot. But if Caden Sterns does play well, Kareem Jackson can be such a weapon for you on a limited snap, and not necessarily limited snap count. We know the Broncos are going to play more nickel and dime, but just thinking about these possibilities as they're in, more of those types of defensive looks, what roles he can play and what that does for Caden Sterns to have another, to have his mentor, one of his mentors back for another season, to just really be able to solidify and really focus on his game, not have to worry about, hey, just so you know, you're the guy and that's it. That's a lot of pressure to put on a young player. So having Kareem Jackson back and really establishing their roles early on, I think is going to be key for this new coaching staff.
One, I love when you mentioned maybe the possibility of blitzing him, because how many times have we seen Kareem being one of those guys who's 12 to 15 yards off the ball at the safety position? The snap happens, it's a handoff, and all of a sudden we see him in the pile already. Like, he is a heat-seeking missile. And the fact that you might be able to use him, like Sayre, I'm telling you here, and I'm envisioning it, and I hope it comes to fruition here. But this is the type of move. This is a chess piece type of move where the Broncos can use Kareem Jackson as their defensive secret weapon, like Weapon X. Like, we're talking Wolverine stuff here. Like, he is that type of a machine here. And I think that now, especially with an elevated role where maybe he's not going to see as many total number of snaps that he has in the past couple seasons, which is good because it can preserve his body. And against some of the teams that you're going to need him, especially on the inside crossing patterns, you need to stop the run, especially like, hey, when you go nickel and dime, you better make sure your defensive line is super intact, because that's where you can struggle against the run. I think that if you make the move of this and you put, a guy like Kareem Jackson inside the dime and the nickel, and you are playing teams that love to run the football, but you need to still play in your nickel or dime, he's a guy that can stop the run too. He becomes an extra run defender there. And then the rest of the other guys will become cover guys, which I think is a great formula and a great strategy here for this Broncos football team. I tell you what, I think the one thing that is kind of concerning when we look at it, Sayre, I think the optics, the standpoint of it, there's some unknown variables right now, right? I think for all of us, we're looking at these moves here for the Broncos on paper, and certainly it is exciting. And Broncos country, you have every right to be jacked up like we are here. But I will say here, just to be the realistic part of it, we do not know what Ejiro Evero's defense will look like. We don't even know right now what his defensive philosophy will be. We just know that, hey, it's going to be predicated on the fact that we need to get pressure on opposing quarterbacks, and more pressure could lead to more takeaways, but it could also lead to giving up some plays as well. That's the nature of being in an aggressive defense, which is why we never really saw Vic Fangio be hyper aggressive. Denver also, even in that hyper aggressive format, didn't get as many takeaways, but I think that we're going to see an emphasis on getting the ball back for the offense. And when you have a quarterback like Russell Wilson, a run game with Javonte Williams, and if your defense can play very aggressive and be a top 10 defense in terms of takeaways and talk about scoring defense, I mean, Sayre, the opportunity, the formula here for the Broncos to be a championship team, I mean, it is all there.
It is. And I think one of the things that you said that really stood out to me, Cody, heat-seeking missile. I would love to see Kareem Jackson be that kind of weapon for the defense. The Broncos are just going to be able to play a lot faster on defense with a guy like him out there. If you're in the dime or the nickel or whatever, and Kareem Jackson is out there as one of your DBs or one of your linebackers, I just feel like there's so much opportunity there. Could you put him as a spy on the quarterback? Could you do, I mean, it's like you said, a chess piece. And I think as a heat-seeking missile, I feel like Kareem Jackson is poised to really thrive. Like you said, we don't exactly know Ejiro Evero's defensive philosophy. We know, like you mentioned, that he wants to get after the quarterback, that he's willing to send additional pressure as needed. We also know that the Broncos envision Baron Browning more off the edge. Now we're hearing that they may envision Kareem Jackson as more of a dime linebacker and flipping Caden Sterns back to that deep safety position. So I think the picture is kind of becoming clear. It's like it's been a blur for the last however many months, and now we're getting closer to the drafts, and it's just one piece at a time. The clarity is coming, and I love that Kareem Jackson is back in the fold. Look, it would have been cool to sign Tyrann Mathieu. That would have been a fun, exciting move. But at the same time, Kareem Jackson, like we mentioned on yesterday's show, he knows these players on this defense. And I think that if he was the one that convinced the Broncos to bring him back, or if it was George Paton, or if Justin Simmons had something to do with it, I just think overall, really, really smart move by them to really think it through, watch the market, and get back a player that can now be a key weapon for your defense as you elevate a young player into his previous position.
It's got Broncos country excited. And look, one thing I'm excited to touch on here coming up in just a moment, Sayre, is why George Paton, the moves that he is making, is indicating that he is going all in on a potential championship run. We talk about what that looks like coming up here in just a moment. But let me tell you about Built Bar, the sponsor of today's episode show. And folks, listeners of Lockdown Broncos, you know Built Bar as the best tasting protein bar that is out there on the market today, and also the healthiest protein bar. They have 9 amazing original flavors, plus the occasional limited time flavor like the marshmallow covered puffs. For example, they did release the Brownie Batter Puffs. It's only a limited time offer and it comes and goes. Look for it to make its return to built.com here soon. They have the Churro Puffs, which is personally one of my favorites. I love it. I love the fact of the cinnamon with the marshmallow, with the milk chocolate. It is a perfect combination. It's got me as excited about Kareem Jackson coming back as anything else as well. It is the Kareem Jackson of Built Bars, and that is the Puff edition there. Now, outside of that too, the reason I love Built Bar, I like to live a healthy lifestyle, and I also love chocolate. I love to indulge in delicious treats, but Built Bar allows me to take a bite into something that contains 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, and only 4 grams of sugar for something that's covered in 100% milk chocolate. That's a tremendous value if you're a health person like myself or Sayre, and you take that into consideration. So we want you to go to built.com here today, check out all the amazing flavors, find one for you and your family. And when you go to checkout, make sure you apply the promo code LOCK15. That's going to get you 15% off your next order today at built.com. And as we enter the fourth quarter action on today's episode, Lockdown Broncos, once again, a big mile-high salute to everybody in Broncos country. Thank you so much for making Lockdown Broncos your first listen of the day every single day. Sayre, Bedinger, and myself, we have you covered every single day, all year long, because for the true fan, there is never an off season. We truly appreciate getting to interact with all of you here in the YouTube comment section. Make sure you're subscribed and you have notifications on so you never miss an episode here. And also on your favorite audio podcasting platform. We appreciate you so much, Broncos country. Thank you so much for all the love and the support. But Sayre, hey, let's talk about why this is signed by George Paton, really going all in. And look, there's a chance they can make some more moves. But why George Paton is going all in on a potential championship run. Like, it's starting to feel like this is becoming a championship or bust type of feel, which is a little too early to say that, but championship is the ultimate goal. That's what George Paton wants. And these moves, I think, are putting the Broncos on paper a little bit closer to making that a potential reality if all things click, right? There's a lot of different variables that will go into that, but there is too much at stake, I think, right now. And I think with the move of Kareem Jackson coming back, you look at guys like Caden Sterns and Jamar Johnson. I felt like maybe in George Paton's case here, and I don't want to speak for him, but I'm just making the assumption that maybe there's too much at stake with this roster, with the guys that you have intact, with the deals that they have, rookie deals, and guys that you just extended, or guys maybe approaching expiring deals. It was too much of a risk to enter this season banking on 2 second-year safeties in a rotation behind your veteran guy there with Justin Simmons. That's why I think it's important to have a guy like Kareem Jackson back, but it also preserves the player development and also the mentorship that you spoke on earlier of Kareem Jackson with these young guys.
Yeah, it's that all factors in. And I think people should go back and listen. First of all, thank you for listening. Go back and listen to that George Paton expectations episode, because we did an entire episode dedicated to, expectations for the new acquisitions, expectations for George Paton in the draft and year 2 as a GM. And one of the things that we touched on is just the overall depth of the roster. The expectation is that, if one guy goes down, you're going to have somebody in place that can keep everything moving at a high level. And I think that's exactly what this move does. It just completely shifts the outlook for the safety position. Like you mentioned, we were just talking about, well, maybe the Broncos should draft somebody at the safety position earlier than we think. Maybe they should go after, maybe even trading up for somebody. I was messaging somebody about that on Twitter just the other day. So it really does change the complexity of the position. Not that you would pass on a great prospect in the draft just because you signed Kareem Jackson to a 1-year deal. But in terms of the championship expectations, I do agree with you, Cody. I feel like this is another move pointing in that direction. The Broncos believe this is a championship caliber team, and Kareem Jackson is a championship caliber roster move. And for Kareem Jackson, he's got to be looking at all of the situations that he's been in as an NFL player, playing for the Houston Texans, then playing for the Denver Broncos over the last 3 years, who just frankly haven't been good. And now you've got an opportunity to go to a situation in Denver where you've been playing, where you could legitimately contend for a championship. That's a great move on his part. It's a great move on the Broncos' part to give him that opportunity. And I just think all around it raises the level of your roster entirely.
I'm feeling the wind right now. I think there's a breeze in my room, but it's like I got like this sign of this feeling that George Paton may not be done just yet, Sayre. Like, the Kareem Jackson move is a big move for the Broncos in terms of bringing back this high expectation, but also like the excitement, and you're adding key depth there. But like at this point too, I also believe that Denver could still at this point too bring back Bryce Callahan, because realistically speaking, no matter where Bryce Callahan, no matter where Melvin Gordon potentially end up, they're going to have to be expected to sign a one-year deal. Why not make it with Denver where you've got something built? Like for Bryce Callahan, it's been a great fit for him being here with Justin Simmons. And as we know, Justin Simmons is lobbying with George Paton like, hey, let's get Bryce back. And I know that's in the conversation right now with the Broncos organization. They are looking to make that happen. It's just going to be a mutual agreement between Bryce's camp and George Paton and the Denver front office here. But even like for Melvin Gordon, he's going to have to put aside, like, I want to be the number one back. I want to be paid a lot of money. Like, it's probably not going to happen. But you can still have a very impactful role in this offense. It's all about buying. It's about we, not me. And I think that this is a big, big sign here for the Broncos that they're saying, hey, it's all about we. It's not me. There's no egos. There's no individuals here. This is going to be a team family effort. And I think with Russell Wilson coming in, I mean, the standard that we talk about with team mentality, I think the offensive players got a firsthand look at that when they went to his compound in California. But now the defensive side of the ball, these guys are stoked to get to work as well. I don't think George Paton and the Broncos are done, Sayre.
I don't think they are either, Cody, especially after what you just said. And even just as we're sitting here, I'm thinking, why not throw those two players that you mentioned, specifically Bryce Callahan, Melvin Gordon, why not just throw them the same deal? 1 year worth up to $5 million. That's a more than fair market deal for where Bryce Callahan is at right now. As a matter of fact, I think that would pay him significantly more, at least a little bit more than K'Wan Williams got. And then for Melvin Gordon, I mean, other younger running backs that have produced as much, if not more, over the last couple of years are going for $6 million a season. It just seems to make sense. You offer those two guys a similar deal to this. And if they're willing to do exactly what you just said, put the team above me, I think that makes a lot of sense for both of them. And specifically for Bryce Callahan, to me, that would be the move that if you make that move before the NFL draft, now that gives you ultimate flexibility because you could feel good about every position group going into the draft. If Bryce Callahan is on board at the cornerback position, you don't necessarily have to back yourself into any corner. Right now, it wouldn't surprise me if cornerback was still at or near the top of the NFL draft list for the Denver Broncos. So you add Bryce Callahan, you kind of peel that draft layer back a little bit, and it just helps everybody. It helps everything. So I hope you're right, Cody. I hope this kind of starts a snowball effect. Okay, Kareem Jackson is back. Now let's get Bryce back. Let's get Melvin. All these different factors. I feel it coming, man. I do. I just did the same thing. I feel that little rush in the air.
The breeze in the air. Well, here's also another thing too. It's like if you're Bryce Callahan, Melvin Gordon, like you're seeing everything that's happening. You're like, okay, hey, you know what? I want to go back there. Like that is a place to be right now. And I'm not sure what other offers those guys may have on the table. But, I think for Kareem, it's like, hey, like the Steelers, that's not necessarily an enticing place for me to go play. You're probably not going to win in that division, especially with everything that, you got the Browns, you got the freaking Ravens healthy again, and now you have the Bengals loading up on the offensive line. I mean, it is a loaded division there as is, but it's like you have a better chance, I think, to win in Denver. And I think Kareem recognized that. And hey, we'll see what happens. I mean, we could find something out in the next 24 to 48 hours. We could find out next week, but I have a feeling George Paton is not done. Broncos country, let us know what you think down below. If you love this episode, Lockdown Broncos, make sure you smash that like button here on the YouTube channel. Make sure you're subscribed. You have notifications turned on so it pushes us out to the algorithm. Thank you so much for helping us grow this show. Broncos country, your support, your interaction means the world to both Sayre and myself. And you know what? We may actually start doing periodic giveaways. Like every 500 subscribers we get, we may do hat giveaways. I saw somebody mention that they want us to do hat giveaways, Sayre, which, you know what? Maybe every 500 followers, we can. Every 1,000, maybe we'll do a jersey giveaway. I'm cool with that. I'm all right with that. I have the budget to be able to do that. And I know Broncos country would love it too. So thank you so much, Broncos country, for helping us grow this show. Your support means the world to us. Lockdown Broncos is your daily Denver Broncos podcast. You can get here on the Locked On NFL Network, your team every day. Both Sayre, Bedinger, and myself, we got you covered every single weekday, all things Broncos talk. Thank you so much, Broncos country, tuning in, and we'll see you on Monday for a brand new episode, Locked On Broncos.